Welcome to the One Advantage podcast, exploring the intersections of peer power, culture, and agility. Your hosts, Mike Richardson, Jason Richmond, and Leo Bottari, co-founders of the One Advantage community of practice and advantage peer groups. For more information, please visit us at the One Advantage podcast.
Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of the One Advantage podcast. I am excited about the topic we have today and our special guest. We're going to be talking about Take the Leap into Agile Leadership with a special guest of Mark Redgrave. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Morning, Mike. Thanks for having me. Great to be on the One Advantage this morning.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. And Happy New Year to everybody again. We said that in our last episode. Happy New Year to you, Mark. Let's make it a great one, everybody. Not least of all, by taking the leap into Agile leadership in our ever-changing business world. We keep hearing how we should be agile, but what is agile leadership and how do we get started? With our special guest, Mark Redgrave today. He is an expert in business agility and a senior advisor at McKinsey Company. And we're going to take a deep dive into organizational, team, and leadership agility. And let me tell you, everybody, Mark knows his stuff. Just listen to this. He specializes in team transformation, ways of working, and high-performing teams. As a former chief transformation officer for three, not one, not two, but three separate billion-dollar companies, and an advisor to companies all over the world, Mark is an expert in business agility. He reveals the shifts in mindset, clarity, and empowerment required to make a step change breakthrough in team engagement and productivity. He has used business agility to transform the effectiveness of more than 350 teams over the past 6 years. And as we said, is currently a senior advisor for McKinsey and Company. Welcome again, Mark Redgrave.
Thanks. Yeah, that's quite an intro. So let's see if we can make some sense for the next couple of minutes.
You have been a busy guy over the last 5 to 10 years. Oh my gosh. And not least of all over the world, Mark. So just color in a little bit. What have you been up to over the last 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I guess so. Look, I've been sort of focusing on transformation and ways of working and the concepts of business agility for the last 8 years, really. Before that, my previous career, advertising guy in London, started a software business in the first .com boom. By the way, we're in another boom right now. It's called an AI boom. It looks exactly the same to me. It's an absolute land grab. But I started a software company in the 2000s, moved to San Francisco, nearly sold it and became richer than the richest person you've ever met, but didn't sell it. Actually then moved to New Zealand. So my transformation journey for the last 8 years has been primarily in Australia and New Zealand, actually. And I landed in Orange County in the beginning of last year. So kind of a new implant to the US, not my first time in the US, but it's been I seem to love to travel around the world and make life hard for myself, Mike. That seems to be
Indeed, everybody. So Mark is a globetrotter. And yes, that is a strange accent that you hear. Where are you from originally, Mark?
Yeah, British originally, confused now. I've got an 18 and 16-year-old kids. They're very confused too.
Yeah. So you got two Englishmen on the call here today, everybody. It's your lucky day. Jason and Leo are not with us this time around. They're off doing their thing. And so I took the opportunity of inviting Mark to join us because he and I are gradually evolving ways of working together, and we're getting involved in a few things. And we're going to progress through our topic today, everybody, take the leap into agile leadership. And we're going to give you a bespoke link where you can go and get some more resources. So if you go to my website, mikerichardson.live, my website, mikerichardson.live / take the leap, all one word, / take the leap, you'll find some resources waiting for you. So Mark, if we may, let's start with the first question I'd love to ask you, and that's a why question. Why do you sense that true agility, and I'm underlining the word true, remains very elusive for most companies, almost more than it ever has been. I mean, we've been hearing the word agile and business agility and enterprise agility for over 20 years now. And we're surrounded by, resources and experts and all this. Why is it that it remains so elusive for most companies still, would you think?
So I think it's a great question. If you want a one-word answer to that, Mike, I think the one-word answer is mindset.
Right.
Right. So because the mindset required to understand what's going on, to take a fresh look at like what's happening in the world and your company, and the mindset to take a growth mindset to understanding how you need to change, that's really hard. So if you had to give one word, I'd say mindset is the thing that is hardest for people. But I've got to say, when you say like, oh, we've been doing this for 20 years, like this is still quite young, right? So
it is, isn't it? Yes,
when I think about business agility, I go back to where Spotify took the Agile Manifesto from 2001 and started to apply those principles to business. That was 2012. That is 20 years ago, right? But like in the grand scheme of things, that's not long. So I feel like I've had a great privilege in the last few years of working with some brilliant companies, right, all over the world that are doing it and are showing like the value and the impact that it can have. So I kind of sit here with a perspective that says, yeah, long way to go, but in what is quite a young methodology and framework, like some amazing things have been achieved.
I love what you're saying there. It's still, relatively speaking, a young paradigm, as it were. And yes, the software industry has been doing it for 20 years or more. And startups have been using various approaches for that period or more. And now more and more bigger corporations, and we'd love to hear more about your experiences of being a chief transformation officer or stepping up to it. But now, Mark, you and I are focused on the mid-market zone, aren't we, of small to medium-sized enterprises, where still it's a relatively young, immature, confusing, confounding, paradoxical kind of paradigm, isn't it? Of, well, what is this agility thing? How do I do it? And most importantly, how do I lead it? If I may, take us back through some of the transformations that you've done and tell us a little bit more. And, what did you learn, along the way, which I'm sure is huge. Tell us a bit more.
Yeah. So, and it's really interesting because when you talk about the mid-market, I think like what really interests me as individually and the conversations we've been having is like what we are learning from some of the most forward-thinking companies on the planet, right? The Spotifys of this world that 12, 13 years ago jumped into something. We've learned so much. And what I'm personally really invested in now is to take those learnings and scale them down, because the awesome thing is you don't need to be $1 billion company and you don't need to have multi-million-dollar consultants in the door, okay, to actually adopt and benefit from the principles we've learned. So like, I think that's really, that's what drives me personally. I'm lucky that I get to sit in boardrooms with big companies and, in beautiful offices, in beautiful cities, but it's like, I'm really well aware, as of you, Mike, that like it's the mid-market that I think stands to benefit hugely. Yeah. So that's exciting. But to answer your question, the transformations I've been chief transformation officer for have been across 3 sectors, 3 industries. That's interesting. The first I did was telco. Yeah. And they're always good transformation candidates, right? Because they're legacy businesses. Most have been around for 100, 150 years. Granny's still got a landline, right? And it's like, and Granny doesn't want the landline anymore. So these telcos are going, oh goodness me, we've got like hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue just disappearing every year. How are we going to change what we do and how we do it to make up for that loss?
Yep.
So I did telco, I then did banking, and then the third of my three was retail. So, and why I think that's given me a very privileged kind of perspective is different industries, but common problems to solve, right? So yes, they're different, but you know what? They're not that different, because when you think about, companies are full of people, right? People are humans. Humans need things, okay, to be able to do their best work. And actually, when you think about like the principles that you and I sort of really embrace, it's about how do you create the conditions in a company for your people to feel inspired, engaged, and to do great work, right? And that's about leadership. It's about lots of different things. But like when we talk about billion-dollar transformations of multi-billion-dollar companies, it's the same. It's just you're doing it to 30,000 people, not 100 people.
Yeah, it's just more zeros, right? It's more zeros.
But the principles are the same, and that's why I think this is such an interesting conversation, right?
Yeah, and just tell us a little bit more, Mark. So whether it's lots of zeros with big corporations like you've been talking about, or fewer zeros with mid-market companies, small to medium-sized enterprises, what's the outcome of going agile? In other words, perhaps even, can you, from your insights that you accumulated, describe what is agile? What does it mean? It means the ability to adapt the workflow, the engagement, the inspiration that you were just talking about, but just sort of double click on that a little bit more. What does it mean to be agile?
Yeah. So the key thing for me here is, in a constantly changing business environment, and the reality is it doesn't matter how big your company is and what business it's in, right? Stuff is changing all the time, and it's only going to get quicker. Like if that's the reality of the business environment, your company and your people and your teams have to be adaptable, right? They have to be able to embrace change and to perform and grow whatever you want to do with your business. Like your people, your teams, your leaders have to be able to do that. And we know now, Mike, having done this for the past 10 or 15 years, that like there are certain things about the way companies plan and execute and deliver work, okay, that need to be true for these teams to be adaptable. Okay. And it's like, so if you say what's agility about, what's business agility, it's about creating teams that can respond to change and can be successful by really and for me, it's all, I said a second ago, it's all about people. Like, how do you like unlock the true potential of the people in your organization? And I'm working with companies today that are 25 people. Yeah. Exactly. And I was on a call this morning with a company, and we got 15,000 people that we need to try and change. Right. It's like, it's the same stuff.
So it doesn't matter, everybody, whether you got lots of zeros or fewer zeros. And that's just why I was so looking forward to having this conversation with Mark today and sort of comparing notes, because he's really touching on the nerves. And so it's agility is the ability to adapt, everybody, and to pivot, and pivot some more, to not only respond to change, but proact to change. In other words, everybody, it's about out-innovating your competition and the future. And by the way, the future is only going to move faster and faster and faster with more disruptive change. And so if you think that you've got, 5 years, 3 years, a year and a half, you're likely to be unpleasantly surprised that things are moving faster than that. And, it's a myth, everybody. We're talking about mindset. It starts with mindset. Everybody, it's a myth that small to medium-sized businesses are naturally agile. They are categorically not. They are typically frenetic, hair on fire, seat of the pants. That is not agile. Lots of people think it is, but it actually isn't. That's disorganized chaos. And we know that life is going to be chaotic because it's moving so fast these days. How could it not be chaotic? But there's a world of difference, Mark, is there not, between disorganized chaos and organized chaos. The flow of organized chaos, everybody, is agile, it's adaptive, it's innovative. You just can't hang out in disorganized chaos, can you, Mark? Because that just categorically is not agile.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point, right? Like you can't, I know 20-person teams that are disorganized shit show, right? Can I say that? It's like,
Oh, we'll bleed that bit out, but that's okay.
and I've met teams of 5,000 that are like organizations that are incredible. So it's got nothing to do with size. It is a byproduct of other things that need to be true, right? So that you can, as you say, you can do things like grow, because growth doesn't come from like it's not just about ambition. It's like if you want to grow, you've got to actually do things to create the conditions in which your company can move forward. Yeah. Hope is not a strategy, right?
Yeah, and as you've said, you everybody to be able to grow, you've got to keep up with that growth curve, if not get ahead of that growth curve with your systems, with your processes, with your platforms, with your leadership, with your culture, and the overall architecture of your business, so that you don't outgrow your architecture and you don't start experiencing those growing pains which start to degrade and decay into disorganized chaos again, which will cause the growth curve to flatline or at least become unprofitable. And all of a sudden you've got a cash flow problem.
But that's so you just triggered something in my mind, Mike. I was chatting to somebody the other day, and it's like they are growing, okay, but like they're adding so much headcount to grow, right? So like, what's happening to margin? Margin's gone. Yeah, their margin has halved, and they're going. The answer to growth cannot be hire more people. And this isn't a comment, by the way, about employment. That's not the point. The point is like, you have to be a well-oiled machine to grow profitably.
Yeah. So let's just double click on that a little bit more, Mark. So let's talk about, so what is the widening gap between the contrast? I like to put people in two buckets, the agile and the fragile, right? The victors and the victims, the best and the rest, the worst and the first, right? What's this? What are you sensing is driving this widening gap between those who can be agile and those who can't? What's your experience of that?
I don't think you will meet many leaders or business owners that would disagree with any of the logic, Mike. Right? Because it's like the logic's kind of irrefutable. Yes. You know? Yes. Now, so then you have to say, so what stops people doing something? Right. And I think that's actually like one of the most interesting barriers that is in this space. Now, I'd say like the beauty of business agility is that the principles are easily deployed, right? And you don't have to, because the other thing, my mind's racing here, but the other thing is the concept of transformation for a lot of people is very scary. Right. Like you talk to some business owners and you say, oh, what are you doing to transform your company? And the first thing they do is quite often is they go into full defense mode, right? Like my company's fine. I don't need to transform. I'm like this. And then in the back of their mind, they're going, this is very scary. Right. Like, because I'm trying to figure out how to make payroll. Like transforming isn't really a priority. So when you combine those two things together, it feels quite big and scary, but I guess the opportunity is for people to understand that there are things you can do, right? Like at small scale, medium scale, or large scale, that really start to unlock like the concepts of agility within any business. Yeah. And it doesn't take 3 years, and it doesn't cost $50 million. Right?
Yeah, everybody, Mark and I, we talk about what we call T-shaped transformation journeys. And there's the top of the T, the horizontal bit, which is the top-down part. And absolutely, a transformation journey needs to have a top-down element where the C-suite understands that it needs to be shifting gears and to start showing up in more agile ways. And then the vertical of the T is drilling deeply into, what are the most mission critical processes in the business, product development, production, factory floor, customer service, those kinds of things. where we can start bottom up and start unlocking workflow, productivity, inspiration, engagement, empowerment, and really start to see the ability of the business and the team to shift into a next gear of traction on a trajectory of growth and profitability. And then gradually over time, the top down and the bottom up start to sort of meet in the middle and merge together and blend. And so everybody, think about this not as, we're not going to try to boil the ocean all of a sudden and go through this massive, transformation journey to Agile. Mark and I talk about being agile with Agile, which means start simple, start small, and then sort of get the snowball effect rolling from there, which then becomes more of a self-fulfilling, self-funding journey, because you start to experience the early wins, the benefits, the productivity starts to flow, the cash starts to flow, and you can reinvest, and then sort of bite off the bigger things. Yeah. What would you add into all the mix of all of that, Mark, about how to get the book rolling?
I agree. I mean, I think like there really shouldn't be any reason for companies to think about the way they work to fulfill their growth agenda, right? Like I used to be CMO at a telco as well, right? And like we used to have a saying, it's like, if we've got a $10 million EBITDA gap, right? We used to say, I can't sell myself to that, right? Like if you think you can sell your way to growth all the time, it's just not possible. I'm looking at the business environment, right? I'm looking at the global economic uncertainty, and I'm saying, oh, I think top line's going to be hard. Like, it's not going to be easy for a couple of years. So I think that the call to action for business owners and business leaders is to think about, like, how do you just like get that growth from liberating your organization? And I just want to connect some dots here, right? Yeah. Because this was a conversation I had yesterday, and I think it might help bring something to life. So we've all heard the last couple of years about talent shortages and how hard it is to get people to stay, to attract and retain talent, right? And then we had this whole back to work mandate thing, when CEOs are like, I need everyone back in the office. And you go, okay, right, this is business agility, right? So just think about this for a second. The issue with bringing everyone back into the office for some of these larger companies is that the reason they enjoyed being at home was because being in the office kind of sucked, right? And like a lot of the things that they experienced in the office in terms of the way they work really wasn't very fun. And if I can do 80% of the job at home, like, that's better for me because I don't have to deal with all other stuff, right? And the fix for that is to think about, when people are in the office and are working as teams, how do they feel inspired, right? How do you get them to feel to be more accountable for work? How do you get them to collaborate better? That's business agility, right? So like, if you think we're talking like a different language, we're not.
Academically, theoretically. We're not. No, this is a very practical.
Same thing.
Yes. How do you take the leap, everybody? How do you get the ball rolling? And then how do you get that sort of snowball effect to kick in, where you can really spiral up? That's how transformations occur. Is when you were operating at one level, and all of a sudden, through the snowball effect, you've spiraled up to a whole different level, which is now the new normal.
Yeah.
And the new foundation on which you can stand, and then you can do it again and again and again. And I think you've segued us beautifully, Mark, to the last question that I wanted to ask, and that's about, we've covered the why so far, we've covered the what, and now we're going to cover the who, everybody. And the question here, Mark, is who can our listeners be as leaders in taking the first step into their future workplace culture to bridge this gap, this widening gap of agility? And agility, everybody, to a large degree, is your ability to future-proof yourself so that you are somewhat immune from whatever happens in the future with artificial intelligence and this, that, and the other. So, Mark, there is this sort of courageous leap of faith, is there not, onto this trajectory, this snowball effect of an agile transformation. Who do our listeners need to be as leaders to get that journey started?
Yeah. So look, I think, change is always requires courage, right? Like, and to be honest, I have a huge amount of admiration for senior leaders that are pioneers, right? Because it takes real courage, and you got to put yourself out there. So that said, though, like, I would say, if you are a leader, an executive, an owner in any business today, like think about where you have pain, okay? And because there will be aspects of agility that can directly address your pain. I've just given you an example of that, right? Talent. Okay, for last year, all I heard was HR, as company owners and HR executives, saying this whole talent thing is still a nightmare. I can't keep people. I can't find people. Like, this was becoming just about pay, and it can't be just about pay. It's like, right. Like, if that's a pain for you, think about how some of the principles that we've been discussing today, we've just touched on them, but think about how those can help you with that problem. Because this is about solving business problems, right? Solving problems for your customers, solving problems for you and your company. So I would always say, Mike, like talk to me about how business is. Yeah. What's painful?
How's business, and where are you going? Where are things going well? Were they not going so well?
Yeah.
Where are you in traction? Where are you spinning your wheels? Where are you losing sleep?
Exactly.
Beautifully said, everybody. And of course, Mark, as we know, the reality in small to medium-sized businesses in particular is that there's quite a list of those things, right? Yeah. Typically speaking. Well, our product development isn't going as fast as I hoped it would. That market entry into that new geography isn't going as well as we wanted. The new software system we're trying to roll out, and we're trying to do CRM, and we're trying to do leadership development and training. And it's like, my gosh, I'm taking on so much. And that exactly, everybody, is what Agile is about. Agile is about building the capacity and the capability to be in the flow of multiple streams of change, multiple levels of change, multiple angles of change, all at the same time. Because the reality of the future, everybody, is that that's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. You will have to be changing at a higher speed on more fronts simultaneously than ever before. And so this problem is only going to get worse. And
Mike, like, the superpower of prioritization overlaid on that is the trick, right? Yeah. So it's like, yeah, if you own a business, you're gonna have 25 things that are urgent, right? But it's like, what are the 3, the 2, the 1 thing that you can fix this next quarter, right?
You have
that creates material value for you. I guarantee you that business agility will unlock that. Exactly. Like, literally.
Exactly. And Mark knows that, one of my favorite words, everybody, is in the Agile space, is triage. So exactly, you've got a long list of things to work on. Well, what's the short list of things you're going to super triage and unlock? And as we've been talking about, get the snowball effect to kick in from there. And it was interesting, Mark, I was having a great conversation with a very successful business leader the other day that's built a very successful business. And he was telling me, he says, actually, things are going pretty well. We're growing very fast. Things are going pretty well. The team seems to be working pretty well. I'm not sure that I have any fires to fight. He said, and I'm worried about what fires I might have to fight in the near future that I haven't even thought of yet, that haven't even presented themselves to me yet. And that's really what we mean by being future-proofed, everybody. Yep. It's anticipating what might be coming next. It's doing the scenario thinking about, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And what if the other happens? It's that idea of luck is where preparation meets opportunity. And the problem, everybody, is that so many businesses are unprepared. Luck is where preparation meets opportunity. Yeah, bad luck is where a lack of preparation meets, opportunities to stumble and fumble and to falter. And so it's all about being ever prepared, everybody, for what's coming next. And that's what Agile is. And again, if you're looking for a few extra little resources and inspirations, then go check out the bespoke link for this episode, everybody. Go to my website, mikerichardson.live, mikerichardson.live, L-I-V-E, mikerichardson.live/take the leap, all one word, /take the leap. Mark, what final thoughts would you have for our listeners who want to take the leap to be more agile and future-proof themselves more? What final thoughts do you have?
Oh, look, for me, it's just breaking this mythical barrier that like this is too hard. Yeah. Right. It's not too hard. And you know, your example of the business leader that's got a great business, right? Like when we speak to leaders with great companies, right? They're already there because they're going, how do I get better? Right. So whether you're at the top of your game, it's like, how do you get better? Whether you need to stay or whether you need to stay at the top or need to get ahead, or whether you've actually got a business where you feel there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of growth there if you can just unlock it. My encouragement would be like, don't be scared of this stuff, right? It's just people. It's just understanding how people work, how leadership is most effective, and how you can actually organize the way of working to liberate all of the potential in your company. So like, this is not something to worry about. This is something to say, like lean into it, understand what it can do for you. Because as we said at the start, we've seen companies create massive amounts of value using some of these principles. So it's exciting though, right? I feel like we work in a great area, in a very exciting time, because guess what? Like change is going to get faster. Like we got a whole generation of people, right? We got these Gen Z guys coming into the workforce. They don't look like Gen Xers, right? They need stuff. They need constant growth. They need dynamic working environments. So if you think your team like looks pretty good today, like the guys that you're going to want to hire tomorrow, they don't look or feel like that. So it's really exciting, right? Really exciting time.
Indeed, everybody. So Mark and I are working more and more together on these T-shaped transformation journeys, top down and bottom up simultaneously. Being agile with Agile, start small, finish big, get the snowball effect rolling. Come on over to that link, mikerichardson.live/take the leap. Nothing to fear here, only guidance and support, an opportunity to take those first few steps, take the leap to a more agile future, indeed being more future-proofed. Everybody, there we are, another episode of the One Advantage podcast. We look forward to having you with us next time. A huge thank you once again to Mark Redgrave. Thank you so much for being with you. We will see and hear you next time, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the One Advantage podcast. If you liked this episode, please consider helping us by rating us wherever you listen, spreading the word, having us as a guest on your podcast or webinar, and mentioning us in social media. Find us at the One Advantage podcast, where you can get more information about us and this episode. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to more great episodes to come.